Yeah, so I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is the top 5 contact center strategies. So I think it's going to be a fascinating look at some of the key strategic things we can do to improve the contact center. Just like to introduce to you our panelists. I'm delighted to be joined with 2 brand new speakers to the Call Center Helper webinar series. Be joined by Adrian Swinscoe from Rare Business. I think, Adrian, you started off as an economist. Would you like to sort of take people through in a whistle-stop tour through your sort of career?
Crumbs. Well, I have a bit of a varied career, both here and internationally. I'm a trained economist. I'm also a trained teacher. I've worked in education. I've worked in economic research and analysis. I've worked in also the private sector and business development, innovation-related areas and consultancy and things. I guess the thing I've always kind of focused on is how do we develop new and great things, or new and great sort of products and services that help solve customers' kind of like problems. I was trying to see myself as a bit of an agitator for change, a creator of ideas and new strategies to help generate momentum within organizations. So that's what I've been happily doing for the last sort of 10 years, and hopefully making a bit of a ruckus around the place.
Brilliant. Well, you will see some of that ruckus taking place on Adrian's blog, which I think is very thought-provoking. And Adrian, you also have a podcast series, which I know a lot of people like to dial into their call in their cars, which is quite a good use of time.
Absolutely, and yeah, that goes out to sort of iTunes, and a lot of that becomes feedstock for other ideas, which then also can gets translated into other stuff that I write for my Forbes column, which I was very happy when they approached me about 18 months ago and said, you've been creating a bit of noise over here. That's fine. Can you come and create a bit of noise over here for us? And I said, of course.
Wonderful. Well, Adrian's going to be taking us through the first 3 of the 5 contact center strategies. Megan Jones is our news editor. Welcome, Megan. And Megan is going to be taking us through all of your top tips and questions from the audience. Then delighted to be joined by Brendan Dykes from Genesis. Brendan, you've had quite a varied career, and we do like the variety that brings. Would you like to sort of take us through a snapshot of what you've been doing over the years?
Sure, John. As you said earlier on, I guess I'm a poacher turned gamekeeper. I started working in the electricity industry as a very young man, and worked my way through customer services, involved in both customer service and collections, and then I moved into business analysis and project management on projects to do with customer service before moving into the telco industry, where I was involved in doing solution and enterprise architecture for customer contact systems for 7 years. And in that time I bought from Genesis, and as they say, I liked the company so much I decided not to buy them, but at least to join them. And for the last 7 years I was involved in doing business consulting, helping our customers get more out of the Genesis product set before moving into marketing recently. Another poacher turned gamekeeper move again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that, Brendan. You're going to be taking us through 2 more contact center strategies. Those that have got a slight technology angle on them as well, which I think is going to be fascinating to see. And then we'll be taking your top tips and questions from the audience. If you do want to get a copy of today's recording, go to callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars afterwards, and you'll be able to get details from that. Just a reminder that you can leave your tips and questions into the chat room, and as well as get a copy of the slides, callcenterhelper.com/chat. Very straightforward to log into there, and just while you're logged in, you can hit this button, which is the download webinar slides button there, which should be great. What I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to start off today with a poll, and I would just like to ask the question of the audience: who owns customer service in your organization? Is customer service owned by the customer service director? Is it owned by marketing? Is it owned by frontline advisors? Is it owned by the board? Or is it owned by all employees? Just like to select on there who you believe owns customer service today in your company. So just like to vote on that in the poll. I think it'd be quite interesting to see the extent of how much the board believe they own customer service in the organisation. You can vote for more than one if you think that's appropriate. So I'm just going to share the results up on the screen with you here, and here are the results. It is 56% of people encouragingly say all employees own it. 35% say the customer service director. 11% marketing, 10% frontline advisors, and only 8% the board. So, Adrian, I know you were sort of a bit contrary about ownership of customer service. Do these results surprise you?
No, they don't. They don't surprise me. I mean, I think that when you say that the 56% or 55% that say all employees should own customer service, I agree with that and I applaud that. I guess my question would be, then who drives that forward when you want to see improvements in your customer service across the whole business? So it's all very well to say that it should be owned and delivered by all employees, but actually who's in charge for new initiatives and driving improvements? And that's my question. That would be my question on that.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I'm going to drill down a little bit more. So we're going, rather than just customer service, let's have a look at who owns social media in your company today. So let's put the results up on the, or the votes up there. Who owns customer service, social media in your company? Is it owned by customer service? Is it owned by marketing? Is it owned by your customers? Is it a social media team that own it? Or is it nobody owns it within my organization? So I think this would be quite interesting to see, and quite interesting to see how this compares. So Brendan, any idea of which one you think is going to come up top?
My immediate gut reaction would be a lot of people will say marketing, because marketing has traditionally owned social media, but I just wonder whether the social media teams are now starting to appear, and people might say that. And yeah, marketing and social media team.
So let's put the results up. Here we are, 51% marketing, 41% a social media team, encouraging only 10% nobody. What's surprising here, I think 19% is customer services, so I think this is, and this is almost a complete dichotomy of who should own customer service in a company. Only 7% of people believe their customers own social media in your company. And Adrian, I would say my personal take is that the customers probably own it, and we think that we own it.
Well,
Do you agree with that?
I think, Johnson, you make an interesting kind of point, and what I would do is I'd go back to the term social media and say, what does social actually mean? And if you think about it in a media context, it's a channel. Well, social implies it's two-way, therefore there has to be a degree of ownership that comes from your customers. And so that's really interesting, because maybe it still implies an organizational dynamic which is still broadcast, push, one-way communication, and actually the ownership, it should be a co-ownership perhaps.
Yeah, I think there's some fascinating stories on that.
And I think I'd be interested to know where that social media team lived, even if it's got a social media team. I suspect that probably still lives in marketing in a lot of organizations as well.
Indeed. Well, I'd just like to take a little drill down then and ask in one or two words, who do you think should own customer service in your company? We looked at who owns it today. Who do you think should own customer service in your company? I'd just like to put that into the chat room. That's at callcenterhelper.com/chat if you're not already logged into the chat room. The address is down here at the bottom. And reminder that if you want to download today's webinar slides, you can also do that from inside the chat room. So who do you think should own chat? Colin says all employees and partners should own it. Kaylee says the responsibility is driven by marketing. Matt says employees at all levels. Jonathan says all employees with the direction set by the board. Bill says all employees. Louise says it's the CEO and the management team. Laura believes it's marketing. Candice says it's customer service, but they need the support of the entire organization. which I think is interesting. So we're seeing a lot of ideas about it really being some sort of collaborative approach, which is very very fascinating to see. Well, I'd like to dive straight into the agenda now, and let's have a look at the first of the contact-centered strategies. So I'm going to pass the baton across to Adrian Swinscoe from Rare Business. And Adrian, if you could take us through, please, the first of the 5 top contact center strategies.
Glad to, Jonty. Thank you. So in the 3 strategies that I've sort of picked, they're more sort of food for thought. And the first one I want to share with people is this idea. There's an idea. If you like, it's there on the slide. It says Goodhart's law. Now, the interesting thing about Goodhart is that if you think of his law was, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. Now, Charles Goodhart is a professor at the London School of Economics and a former member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England. And I think he first cited this in a paper in 1975, so it's been around for some time. But let me tell you a little story that sort of illustrates the law and the difference between measures and targets. And one of the most common stories you might hear associated with this law is this. It comes from a nail factory that used to be that was situated in the old Soviet Union. Now, the goal of the central planners was they wanted to measure the performance of the factory, so they measure the performance of the factory operators. So they were giving them targets about the number of nails they wanted it to produce. So the factory operators, they said, right, fine, they produced thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of nails, but those nails tended to be tiny and useless. And then the planners kind of started thinking about this and said, okay, well, rather than actually measuring on the number of nails, we'll change it to the measure of, we'll measure them on, we'll give them a target for the total weight of nails that they're going to produce. Well, what sort of behavior that produced was that the operators then produced several enormous but generally useless large nails. And what that illustrates is that, you know, performances, when there's the idea that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a new measure. If we bring that example sort of closer to home and look at it, say, from a contact center, a call center perspective, there's an example from an Australian telecoms provider that was looking at wrestling with this average handle time sort of issue. And what they ended up doing, they decided that they were going to eliminate all the productivity metrics from the frontline employees in their performance scorecards, because they were just they were finding they weren't getting the results and the behavior that they wanted. And now what actually happened as a result was that although their average handle time increased slightly, their actual number of repeat calls fell by about 60%. And what they do now is that company, rather than actually, they still use average handle time as a measure, but they don't use it as a target. And what they also measure is they measure customer satisfaction and whether customers, whether they're happy with the service that they've received. So it's just something to think about in terms of, are your performance measures becoming targets, and in so becoming bad measures because it's driving the wrong sort of behavior. So the second strategy I want to kind of move on to is this idea that there is a link between happy staff and happy customers. Now, the next slide is just a graphic. I mean, there's all sorts of studies that have been published that suggest that both rational and emotional forms of engagement tend to reveal a fantastic correlation. I mean, an 85% correlation between the way our employees feel about our brand and our company and the way that customers can do. But the interesting thing about, if we think about the whole employee engagement debate, one of the things that tends to happen is it tends to get stuck in a functional perspective, and we see engagement as something that we do to people, rather than it's something that we engage, that we do with kind of people. So it's not necessarily about necessarily what we do to people. It's about how we are and what we create and the environment we create. And we can look at that from some other research that's probably quite familiar to many of our listeners, that comes from Gallup. This is from back in 2010. It's a huge engagement survey that was done, and they've just shown some of the results that some companies have achieved in terms of increasing their engagement and helping reduce cost and also improve kind of top line and bottom line performance across the board. And the top performing companies, when they focus on engagement and get it right, they have effectively almost a 4 times kind of more sort of earnings kind of per share than sort of your average kind of company. But if we dig into that a little bit kind of deeper and build on that kind of point about engagement is not something that we do to people, it's about the environment that we create, it's about enabling our employees and giving them the tools that they need to deliver the service and the experience that we want. If you think about that, actually I think the point I'd like to make is that engagement is more art than it is science, so it's not necessarily just about surveys and initiatives and everything else. It's about how we are as people. It's a very, very personal sort of thing. And so that's something I wanted just to dwell on a little bit with our audience. I mean, because we can look at, there's another study that was done by Scarlet Surveys that looked at all the different sort of drivers of engagement. And the interesting thing that came out of that is that they actually saw that there's, like many other motivation sort of studies, there are both things that drive engagement, but there are things that pull engagement back. And so rather than just thinking about the upside, I'd like our audience to start thinking about if we want to drive engagement in our organizations and therefore drive better service and drive better experience, we have to think about how we increase engagement but also decrease disengagement. And we see from this slide there's some of the engagement drivers and some of the disengagement drivers. Finally, the third strategy I'd like to talk about is this idea about we want to get the board on board. Now what I mean by that is that, let's look at a picture of a typical board. Imagine those people, they sometimes feel, if you're a contact center leader, they're probably quite distant from the board. And that can often be that the board thinks of customer service or call centers as generally as a cost. And they see it as an overhead and a necessary thing, even though the people in customer service understand there's so much potential within their contact center, so much kind of room for kind of growth and to do more to help kind of customers. So the problems that I see with this is that you end up getting people that talk at sort of crossed purposes. So if the narrative at the board is one of, we see that customer service is more of a cost issue or contact center is more of a cost issue, but people in the customer service space are looking at things around, we know we can increase engagement, we can drive profitability, all of those different things. I think what we have to understand is we have to understand our audience a bit better. And we have to think about their narrative and think about helping them go on a journey with us such that we can help them better understand the customer service kind of area, but also how they can achieve their objectives as well as we can achieve ours. And a case in point is if we look at this issue, which is, it's been around for some time, that the idea that customer service is generally looked at as being can be viewed as being quite a reactive thing, but I actually think there's a real opportunity to start being more proactive with our customer service. And there's all sorts of research and examples kind of around of leading companies that are focused on trying to solve problems that they know customers have. We know this from our experience, we know this from our employees, we know this from our data and our analytics. And if we do that, what we can do is we can solve, I feel like we end up with creating a win-win situation where we can both save costs at the same time, but also increase satisfaction and engagement at the same time. And so I would say that reactive and proactive customer service is a real issue that we should be trying to focus on, because if we do that, and if we can make our service more proactive, we can take and sell that case to the board. We can talk to their, if you like, their narrative and understand their story a little bit better. And what it helps us do also is advance our objectives in the kind of customer service space, but also advance our board's objectives. But just to cap all that off, to round all that off, let me leave you with kind of one quote, which I think encapsulates all of what I've been saying around this getting the board on board. And it's from an author that I really like. It's a guy by the name of Zig Ziglar, and I think he's probably got the most rock star name I've ever heard. More rock star than any rock star could dream up. And it was from a book called "See You at the Top." And Zig Ziglar was a personal development, sort of sales writer. And when I read this book, there was one sentence that stood out, and it says, "If you help enough people get what they want, then you will get what you want." And I just want you to think about that, and think about it from a perspective of if the enough people are your boards, and if you help them get what they want, then you'll get what you want. And think about that in the context of making your customer service more proactive. If you do that, you put that together, I think you'll get real kind of momentum and real sort of real progress. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much for that, Adrian. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think the getting the board on board is probably one of the hardest things that we have to do. I always used to find that if I had a project I wanted to get through after a number of years of presenting a business case only to be shot down by the board, is I would get the bare bones for a business case, and then I'd go around all the board members individually and sort of ask them for their opinions on the area I was looking at, and finding out what their prejudices were, and then I built those into the business case. So that, and I knew it was starting to work when people said, "You know, I've been saying that for years," and it's not. Yeah, well, I interviewed you and I've built that in. So that was the one way that I managed to get some of the business cases through. And it'd be fascinating to see if anyone in the audience has got their experience of what tips do you have for getting the board on board. If they'd like to put those into the chat room, and then we'll cover those in a short while. Sorry, I interrupted you, Adrian.
No, it's okay, John. I mean, what I would say on that is that when I worked in a very, very large organization and we were developing new plans for new initiatives and things, we had a word for that, and it was what we called it socialization. And the idea is you take your initial skeleton plan and you walk it around the place. And so the objective is that you want to go into a board meeting already knowing what the questions are and having already kind of addressed this question. So it becomes a bit of a collaborative effort. So you don't put all the effort necessarily into writing and developing the plan. You put more, just as much effort into, as you rightly said, walking it around to all the different kind of board members, and then incorporating all of their thoughts and their objectives into your plan, so that you end up, you get your basics and them all lined up before you've even gone into a presentation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Skeletonization, I think that sums it up very nicely. Well, thank you very much for that, Adrian. I'm going to drill down into your second of your areas there. So I'll just put put my slides up on the screen, and we're going to go into a poll, which is to look at, tying in with your graph, how engaged are your contact center advisors? So on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is fully engaged and 1 is hostile, if you'd just like to put in where you think on average, your contact center advisors fit in within the within that overall area there. So 5 is fully engaged, down to 1 is hostile. So I think this would be quite interesting to see. Adrian, from your research, where would you expect the results to come out?
Well, let me put a caveat on this. There's always a difference in perception between kind of management and employees. And it comes, well, there's always a difference in perception in most cases. But I would say that I'm not surprised by the results as they seem to be coming out in the poll as it currently stands. But I would suggest that in reality the figures are possibly a little bit lower on the engaged side, and a little bit higher on the neither engaged nor disengaged. And that's only because, you know, we like to look at our own work through rose-tinted spectacles sometimes.
Indeed. Well, here's the good news. The good news is only 1% are hostile, 5% disengaged, I think what's probably worrying here is 37% are neither engaged or disengaged.
Yes.
And I think in tying in with Adrian's comment about we have to work not just on employee engagement, but actually the employee disengagement. We did a little article I saw presented recently on something called the contact center hierarchy of needs, and it was about getting all those hygiene factors sorted out before we start to get onto the grandiose incentive schemes and then wonder when they don't quite work. So thanks everyone for that. We're now going to pass
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Indeed.
So I was asked a little while ago to go and talk to a large international financial services firm around the link between customer and employee engagement, and it was a workshop with global HR and global kind of marketing. We were talking about that whole engagement sort of issue, and at the end, what was interesting what came out of it was the global HR director turned around to me and said, "So if we just helped our managers and supervisors just become better people and better managers, that would go a long way towards addressing the issue?" And I said yes. So sometimes that illustrates the point of, like, it's not about what you do to people, it's about how you are. So, like, you remember that old saying that we join a company but leave a boss?
Indeed, yes.
That's a big I think, an important point.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. Megan, if we can pass the baton across to you, and if you can share with us what's been going on within the chat room.
Is it in? Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, the chat room's been quite busy, so we've had a number of tips and opinions in. Rav says social media is best managed by the contact center and marketing team in a combined team, which is quite an interesting thought there. Amy says we have a social media team within marketing. They deal with the fun side of the interaction with the customers, as in competitions, branding, advertising, and any issues are then passed to our customer service team to deal with in line with our policies and procedures. Adrian, have you seen that in any contact centres at all?
Yeah, I have seen that. I think the key for me in this is the communication that exists between departments and functions. It's all very well splitting things off, and that all makes complete sense by giving people responsibilities for different things. But if you have, as he says in the tip, it says that any issues are then passed to our CS team. Now, it's that communication kind of link where often most of the problems exist, and how they're passed on and how they're dealt with. And I think that's where the friction really kind of lies, and getting that right is the crucial bit.
Oh, brilliant.
Carrying the context, etc., across to the customer services people is vital. Otherwise, the link back to the customer gets lost in terms of their expectations and their original reason for contact.
Brilliant. Amy, if you could maybe elaborate on that in the chat room, that would be very helpful. We've had an opinion in from Robin that said if the board is asked about the importance of customer service, they will say it's important. However, when it comes to allocating resources, time and budget for the contact centre, they'll put up roadblocks and focus their efforts on sales and marketing initiatives. Brendan, have you found this to be the case?
Completely the case. I mean, customer services always gets attention when things are bad and ignored when things are good. Unfortunately, in many organisations, the fact that if customers get a good experience and they get good customer service, and as I say, we've said customer service lasts from the point of the customer being wanting something through to the point of them leaving the organisation, then if they get a good customer service through that process, then they're more likely to stay. And I'll pick some of that up in my other two strategies in a minute.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, we've had another tip in from Leo that says we have a client that splits their team into two areas. Any incoming messages with inquiries or complaints are handled by the customer service advisors, and then the marketing team deal with the outgoing marketing campaigns. We've had another opinion in from John saying we're considering transferring the team managing the social media team to the contact centre to just handle complaints from customers, while the core social media team handle the other interactions from customers. There seems to be quite a lot of dividing going on at the moment between different jobs and roles.
It's because the people in customer service are experts at handling customers. No disrespect to marketing, but marketing are very good at. I'm in the marketing team, so I'll say there's the fluffy stuff and the promotional side of it. But when it comes down to the right systems and the right information, the right knowledge to be able to handle customer difficulties, then customer service is always the better place to handle them.
Okay. We've had another tip in from Colin saying contact centres are more often than not cost centres. Sometimes they drive sales, but more often they are a cost. However, when we spend, we need to see value. Contact centres should add value, and this will help negate the negative cost image at the board. We've had an opinion in from Paul saying Amazon employ an excellent customer engagement programme where all of their top product owners have to spend time engaged with the customer service teams to understand the impact that their decisions are having on the customer. And this seems like quite a good idea for blending the different teams together. Adrian, have you seen this in action?
I haven't seen that specifically in action, but I tell you what I am really pleased to see is this sort of idea that you can, well, I'd like to see more of it, where you end up getting, you can second people to other departments as a way of promoting kind of communication and understanding, and if that's a way of embedding somebody from product into customer service, and then you can do exactly the same thing on the flip side. I think if we saw more of that, then I think what we'd end up doing, we'd improve communication, not necessarily communication through electronic means. We'd actually see better communication and better relationships within our organizations between people. So you'd actually be able to, wherever possible, either pick up the phone and talk to somebody if you have a problem, or you could just walk around and speak to somebody if you're in this, if you're in the same building. I think that's a really good thing, because the more we build relationships and we build trust wherever possible in a face-to-face or environment, I think that can be a really powerful thing, and also can help connect your employees to each other, and that makes them feel more part of a bigger thing, and that can drive engagement as well.
No, that sounds really good. We've had another tip in from Craig saying that understand the board/stakeholders' goals and then align your work analysis to show how through collaboration you can achieve your collective goals. We've had another tip in from Paul also about getting the board on board, saying tie the customer experience and scores back to profitability. If you improve customer experience or net promoter score, what does that mean in terms of money for each of their units? If they're concerned about money, that's obviously worth tying back into them there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the end of the current tips that we've got at the moment, John T.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got more tips coming through there, but we'll pick those up a little bit later on as we go through. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that, Megan. We're going to just, before we hand across to Brendan, just want to run another poll question. We're going to be talking about communication channels in a short while. Just like to ask the question, how integrated are your communication channels? We've put 5 statements down here. If you'd like to effectively say true or false, or if any of those is true, just type in, are your contact center channels, our contact center channels are not integrated. So if that applies to you, hit the button. We offer web chat as a channel. Hit that if that's appropriate. All advisors can handle all channels. We can move from digital to the phone seamlessly, for instance, in and social media out as a phone call seamlessly without moving across, doing it manually. And we have a single queue across all channels. So if just like to vote on which of those channels are, and I think that will be quite a good indicator. Brendan, are you expecting many people have got a single queue across all channels?
No, I'm not expecting very many. I think it's a great goal. We have a few, 18. That's 18%. It's quite a bigger number than I was expecting. Interesting one for me is the one above it, which is the digital to phone. And again, I'll pick a bit on that in my next my talk in a minute. But And a lot of companies saying that their channels are not integrated, so they're working in silos, and or stovepipes, which seems to be the other phrase that's being used now.
Brilliant. Well, if you can, in the audience, just in 1 or 2 words, just type into the chat room, what is your biggest multi-channel challenge that you're dealing with? So if you'd like to just type that into the chat room. And while those are coming through, I'm just going to pass the baton across to Brendan. So Brendan, if you'd like to take us through your 2 of the top 5 contact center strategies, I think it'd be fascinating to see them. So across to you, Brendan.
Thanks, John T. And thanks to everybody who's joined this webinar. So I'm going to look at 2 more of the strategies. One is delivering an effortless customer experience, and we'll have a look at that, as well as managing multi-channel stroke cross-channel engagement. But really, I'm going to look at it as delivering an effortless customer experience through managing a multi-channel cross-channel engagement, because a lot of the effort that our customers have to put out to get service is related to the fact of the need to change channels or not get the service that they require in a particular channel. So let's have a look at a few stats. So the Corporate Executive Board, CEB, did a study on customer effort, which is where the whole concept came from, a couple of years ago, and they came out with figures that 94% of customers with low effort will repurchase, and 88% of customers with low effort will increase their spend. So making life easy for the customer has a significant value to organizations. On the other side, 66% of customers switched organizations last year because of poor service in at least one industry supplying them, and that 82% felt that that supplier could have done more to keep them from switching. And I think that the most significant figure is the one going back to that question about digital to phone, is that less than 50% are satisfied with the experience they get when they start on the web and move to the telephone, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So,
in fact, Brendan, we've now got some results in from the chat room of the issues that people are having. Emma says it's having reliable technology that supports multi-channel. Reese says it's integrating all channels to ensure advisors see all communication history in one place. I guess that's a single view of the customer. Integrating chat into social, voice, and email queues. That's a single queue. A big challenge of multiple challenges, balancing resources across different channels. Petra has the problem with implementing new channels. Matt is a bit stuck on their multi-channel strategy. Peter says scheduling agents that are blending between channels, certainly workforce management, is quite challenging when you have multiple channels. Scheduling, so Jane says agents who are competent on the telephone and in written communication, quite different skills there. Paul says getting a single view of the customer. John says integrating communication channels into their CRM system. Laura says, as all our channels are not integrated, it's difficult to handle queries coming through different channels at the same time and allocating resources accordingly. Louise says it's response times to customers, particularly doing stuff like a Twitter feed at 11 p.m. at night. And Darren says it's finding a company clever enough to seamlessly integrate all channels. So quite a wide range of multi-channel headaches our audience have got. Back to you, Brendan.
And well, I think they've probably, I could almost stop my slides there. I think they have all the problems that we're going to look at it here, and hopefully we'll have some thoughts around that as I go through. So, customer experience is based upon our expectations. So what's the expectation of service? We know organizations who we have different expectations of. Louis Vuitton, Ryanair, you think of those companies, you're going to have different expectations of the service that you're going to get. Driven by our emotions, our emotional reaction to whether our expectations are met. And finally, it's our memories. We're actually not in the customer experience game, really. We're in the customer experience memory management game, because what we want to do is let our customers have a good memory of the experience, even if the experience as they were going through it wasn't necessarily good at the time. So the customer has a life cycle with all organizations. We start with a life cycle that that when we join a company, we choose who they're going to be, we're going to join them, we have a managed experience, manage our accounts through it, and we grow perhaps with the organization, and finally we exit. And we all exit at some point in our life from every organization. And during that lifetime, we have a set of transactional experiences, journeys. Taking out a home loan, we'll select who we're going to get our mortgage from, we'll apply for a mortgage, and we'll accept the mortgage. And through that journey, that transactional journey, we're going to have an emotional journey as well. And quite often that emotional journey ends up that we're less happy at the end of it, even if we've completed it successfully, than we were at the beginning of it. So let's talk about this in the context of a real person or a customer of a bank. In this case, it's a lady called Sally, and Sally is a high-flying business executive. She spends a lot of time traveling, she's got a family, and she takes care of the family finances. And to Sally, being able to access her bank services anytime, anywhere she is in the world, it is important to her. So for a bank, this is an important customer because she's high value, and she has high expectations on the bank. And in this particular case, Sally's going to go through a journey of taking out a mortgage. Her and her husband have decided to get a new apartment, and they go to their bank, G Bank in this case, to try and get their home loan. So let's have a think about what Sally's experience might be. Well, in the past, Sally's gone through these sorts of processes with banks before, and quite often she's found it hard to get assistance in channel. She doesn't get proactively kept up to date with what's going on. The experiences she gets are inconsistent across the channels, and at the end she really doesn't feel like she's been recognized as a customer at all. And let's look at those problems then and see how they can be addressed, and through this story we'll think about how we can make things better in this multi-channel world so that it's easier for Sally to get service. So Sally starts her journey, as most people do now, on the web. There's a statistic out there that a customer will be 58% through their buying cycle before they ever contact you as an organization, because they will have done all their research on the web, they'll have done a lot of speaking to friends, they've done the social media searching, etc. And when the Corporate Executive Board did their survey, they did a survey on people calling in, and they found that 57% of customers who called an organization had started their journey on the web, and 34.4% of those were still on the web when they were talking to an advisor in the call center. So the web is become the main point of starting self-service. But one of the problems of the web has become is that it's very difficult in many cases to get assisted service there. And to get assisted service that is proactive to where Sally is, in this case, in the journey. So not just offering her a chat button, which she may or may not choose, and then find that she's got to wait because there's nobody available, but proactively offering Sally a chat in a way that ensures that it greets her at a point in the journey where she is, and that she has the right context, and the lady helping her, in this case Monique, has the context to be able to assist her. Now, Sally may have started that same journey on another channel. The mobile has now become a key channel, particularly organizations which have mobile apps, and getting service from within a mobile app is equally as difficult. Most mobile apps that I've looked at best have the option of being able to click to call, and when you click that number, it just takes you through to the main organization's telephone number, where in this case Sally would have to start with the IVR, start her journey again, and that's very frustrating. We did a study with an organization in Australia about transfers. Now in this case it was transfers from one contact center to another contact center, and the impact that had on the Net Promoter Score was significant. Customers see moving from the web to a phone in the same way. That's a transfer in a customer's eyes, and the CEB study, if you read the effortless experience, talks about it in the same way. So making it easier for Sally to be able to get to an advisor is very important. In this case, Sally is going to call an advisor, and when she calls the advisor, she wants to be able to get through quickly, and having the context of where she's been in her journey on the mobile app pass through to the advisor, avoiding the need for her to go through the IVR again, makes life easier, makes it less effort for Sally to deal with from the mobile app in this particular case. Now, Adrian spoke about proactive customer service, and proactive customer service is vital today. We all are busy people. We need to be kept informed, kept up to date. The last thing we want to do is to have to take time out to phone a call center to say, you know, what's happening, when's my appointment, etc. Being able to keep people up to date is very important. And that can be as simple as an email. So Sally had called be on the chat and agreed to having an appointment at a local branch. Now getting an email to confirm that appointment helps her to be reminded of it, helps her to have things like being able to put it into a calendar automatically from the email, being able to save it to something like an iPhone passbook or the like is again helpful in keeping Sally in the process, engaged in the process and making life easier for her. Text message is another great channel. In this case, Sally, you know, the day before her visit gets a text message, and again that text message gives her the opportunity to be able to put it into her iPhone passbook, has a QR code that she can use so that when she gets to the branch, she can just scan the QR code, and that pulls up all the information in the bank about her appointment. It saves her necessarily having to go to customer services to check in. It makes the process quicker, it makes it easier again for Sally. And finally, a consistent cross-channel experience. The people who've been contacting in on the chat had been saying that they're having difficulties with silos, integrating channels together. Being able to carry context between the channels, being able to ensure that the story of Sally is consistent wherever she touches the organization is vital, because every time she has to repeat the same information that she's given to somebody beforehand is a break in the process, and Sally sees that as a frustration. So for example, here Sally arrives at the branch and she's able to scan in with her QR code, and Robert is then able to get the information that he needs about her appointment very easily. If he needs more help, he's able to contact and reach back into the back office, into the head office organization, and be able to communicate with somebody who can also see Sally's information, who's got all the information about what she's been doing. They can have a chat session with Robert to talk about things like the guarantees needed for the home loan, and even potentially have a webcam video chat, a three-way video chat, to be able to complete the story and complete the case, so that they can resolve it very quickly and again easily for Sally. Now, I've not talked about the telephone, and yet the voice channel is still the predominant channel for many organizations, partly because the service in other channels has not yet caught up with it in terms of chat and mobile, but also because a lot of people, we like to talk to people. We feel confident when we phone a contact center. But if we then have to go through the whole process of the IVR and the customer, telling the advisor all the stuff that the organization should already know, it's very frustrating. In this case, Sally phones up, she's recognized, she's able to authenticate herself, and the system knows that she has a home loan application in process. So they're able to say, do you want to speak to somebody about your home loan application? And then route Sally to the appropriate advisor based upon that. A much quicker process, a process that is joined up and tailored to Sally's particular needs. And I think, John, you were saying in a few weeks' time you've got a session on making the IVR better, and this is all part of that same story about improving the IVR so that it becomes much more personalized.
Yes, indeed we have, which is on March the 19th.
Okay. So that when the call gets through to Kirsten, in this case the agent, she can start by saying, good, I see you are calling about your home loan. Sally hasn't got to explain anything of that. It's a conversation that is starting. Now, there'll be lots of people saying, what about security and what about the three-point check? Yes, if we can do that in the IVR, it makes it much easier. But I recognize that there are times when you have to do confirmation of those sorts of things. But even so, being able to have the information available at the agent's fingertips and for them to be able to deal with the customer in a way that is related and friendly, then that is very helpful. So finally, we come to social media, which we talked about earlier on, and I'm a big advocate that social media service should be dealt with within customer services, as you heard me say earlier on. And customers tweet about all sorts of things. In this case, Sally has tweeted that she's very happy with the service from GBank. Now, you could handle that in marketing. If she'd tweeted she wasn't happy, marketing's probably not the best place to handle that one. It might be better to be able to put that into a customer service. And so having the capability to be able to analyze social media and then route the interactions to the best person available is all part of that joined-up process of being able to create an integrated. I used the word joined up. I used it in the US a few weeks ago. They didn't know what I meant because they don't have joined up writing. They have cursive writing, so I have to use the word integrated. So Sally could have gone through this process not feeling recognized as a customer, but in fact she now is feeling recognized as a customer because she's had an experience which has been integrated, joined up. She's not had to put in a high amount of effort at each step in order to get her loan in place. So Sally will have had an omni-channel journey. She's gone across many channels. This is a complex process, and anybody who's taken out a mortgage knows it's a very stressful process, so anything we can do to make it easier for her is a step forward. But she's been able to get immediate assistance to an advisor. She's been able to get proactive updates when she needs them. She's had a consistent experience whenever she's changed channels, and she's been recognized and valued as a customer. And that has all happened because the organization, GBank, has created an omni-channel customer engagement hub at the center of it, and that's underpinned with capabilities like multi-channel workforce management, reporting across channels, and analytics across those as well. They've designed to give a low-effort omni-channel experience. So I had these two strategies: deliver an effortless customer experience and managing a multi-channel, cross-channel engagement. And I think what we've seen through the story of Sally, that we've been able to deliver an effortless customer experience through multi-channel and cross-channel engagement. John T.
Thank you very much for that, Brendan. I thought it was fabulous, the phrase you had. We're not in the business of customer experience management. It's actually customer experience memory management.
Yeah.
It's not so important if the customer has good experience, but what is important is their memory of that experience. So it's sort of almost how it ends and their memory of it rather than necessarily how it begins.
There's some great work done by Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel Prize-winning sociologist, I think he is, where he talks about the experiencing mind and the memory, and what we experience and what we remember of that experience are two different things. He talks about somebody who says they were listening to a recording and suddenly there was a high-pitched scream in the middle of it, or squeal in the middle of it, and they said it completely ruined the experience. Well, it didn't, because they had a good experience up until that point that there was a scratch or a squeal on the recording. Their memory of the experience was ruined by that.
Very interesting. Megan, so do you want to bring us up to date with some of the tips and questions on the chat room? Megan, I think you might be muted.
I'm muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I'll start again. I was just chatting away merrily to myself there. Okay, so we've had lots of tips and questions coming in during that presentation. We have a tip from Matt saying, any initiative should align with business strategy and company core values. Half the battle is already won if you can demonstrate this. And Brendan, there's a question for you. What is the best way to get past IT or to get buy-in from IT when they seem to be the ultimate gatekeepers on solutions that would enable the evolution of customer service? Sorry, Brendan?
I think Brendan might have muted himself.
Oh dear.
This is one of those $64,000 questions, isn't it?
I just muted myself. There we go. I got halfway through. So I say, having been a poacher and a gatekeeper in the past, it is a very difficult one. we talked earlier on about the return on investment and the value. I think if we can get, or somebody raised the point about being able to show the value in pounds and pence of customer experience improvement, and that's where you have to start. IT, like most departments, rank what's done based upon the value to the organization, or in many cases they do. Show the value, it would be where I would start. And the other one is take them out for a beer.
Great one. If anyone in the audience has got tips, if you'd like to leave those in the chat room.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. We've had a tip from Amy saying, we have a central database in which all employees have access to. We reassign workloads and work through priorities to ensure nothing is missed. Therefore, our communication is all in one area. Customer service deal with complaints, product queries and nice feedback, and this works well between our group and shares the workload out between both teams together, which is nice. Adrian, a question for you. Is it better to have agents handle all channels or agents which specialise?
Ooh, am I muted? No? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Brilliant. I think that's a $64 million question. I mean, I think there's a, if we step back from that, there's a bigger kind of question. When we kind of, when we specialize people and have them functionally organized by, whether it's by email or social media or phone or whatever it might be, all these different sort of channels. The thing that we kind of, the danger that we, well, the challenge that we have rather, is how do we get everybody to communicate, and how do we create, as Brendan was talking about, that seamless experience? Because ultimately in the mind of the customer, and this is again to Brendan's point about how customers remember things, is that whilst they might be contacting us on multiple kind of channels, they actually in their mind really only see it as being, I'm having one conversation with one company, regardless of the number of people I'm talking to. So if you have your agents kind of functionally organized, and by different sort of channels, you've got to make sure that there's no friction between those. However, there is also a movement to try and create more specialized, if you like, super agents, where they can handle all channels. Because some people could say this takes a different set of skills to be on the phone as it is to kind of email. And I said, well, yeah, that's true, but actually, if you're willing to look for more higher skilled and more talented sort of people and willing to invest in those kind of people and to reward them, then there's a serious correlation between the level of skill and investment that you make in your people and the amount of service and the sort of level of experience that they can deliver. So I'm really interested in firms that are investing in their people and creating, if you like, these super agents.
Mm. So we're seeing customers set up digital customer service teams who do written, so they'll do social, email, chat, because the skills are very different. Mm-hmm. We had an organization, I worked with an organization who found that if you gave an agent more than 6 skills, they became less efficient. They became master of none of them particularly. So you have to watch the balance there.
But surely, Brendan, in that sense, we get into that kind of back into the Goodhart's law about the measures and the targets.
What, in terms of how many skills they can do?
Yeah, and measuring performance and things.
Yeah, I guess it's just the experience being given by them to the customer. The success rates.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for that, and there's a very good question from Candice there. We've got another opinion from David, who thinks it's better to have specialised agents, otherwise the knowledge reduces. What can help is looking at the common problems when other channels are needed, and understanding knowledge and system gaps for the main issues is key to improving in this area. And we've got a final opinion in from Robin saying, what I've tried to do is link all customer service efforts back to Salesforce satisfaction. Essentially, if we can keep the Salesforce happy, they will focus their efforts on selling rather than company complaints. And this approach is helping to get the VP of Sales on board.
Good.
Nice work.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that. We're now going to wind down the webinar. So just like to ask everyone if they could type into the chat room in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about today's webinar? So if you could put that into the chat room, what did you like best about today's webinar? If you just put that into the chat room. Slides are available on Call Center Helper. If you go to callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars, we'll also add on a link to that page to Adrian's blog, and we mentioned the podcast earlier, so details on how to access one of Adrian's podcasts. The replay available, follow this link to the replay. And just like to thank very much to our 2 speakers. Adrian Swinsko, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And Brendan, thank you for joining us for your first webinar with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me too.
And just like to say a big thank you to everyone in the audience. And we're going to be looking at contact center transformation next week. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.